So it was obviously a good thing that the judge in the Julian Assange extradition case, Vanessa Baraitser, however you say their last name, ruled against extraditing Julian Assange to the United States. And her justification was basically he would face, a pretty big chance of committing suicide due to the inhumane, disgusting conditions of the criminal justice system. But she ruled against allowing his release while the U.S. empire, the U.S. security state, appeals this decision she made, and it's disgusting. And something Kevin Gostola pointed out, who's been covering, Assange extradition process and the trial and all this stuff around that very well. Highly recommend checking out his work on Twitter and his journalistic work as well. That she basically didn't want to be responsible for Julian Assange being extradited to the United States and having his death more than likely being on her hands. So she punted it. It now goes to the High Court, which is a 3-judge panel, and that's really all she cared about. And that was kind of his reasoning as to why Baraitser, or his reasoning that he thought Baraitser made this decision. And then again, she ruled against allowing his release while this whole kind of appeal process happens, which is just, again, another form of subjecting him to more torture, more physical and mental health issues inside this high security, max security Belmarsh prison in the UK. So this is from Alan McLeod at Mint Press. United Kingdom court ruled that WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange must remain in prison despite an earlier ruling that he could not be extradited to the U.S. Explaining her decision, District Judge Vanessa Baraitser said that as far as Mr. Assange is concerned, this case has not been won. You literally just ruled he couldn't be extradited. Why would you not release him? While the U.S. empire, while the U.S. death state, works on their... Jesus Christ, the dude has been subjected to so much for exposing the crimes of the U.S. empire at such huge cost to himself and those around him at WikiLeaks, his family, his associates, his friends, his support, etc. This dude's a motherfucking hero, for God's sakes. And adding that the U.S. must be allowed to appeal her earlier decision. Part of the ruling was based on her assessment of the Australian publisher being a serious flight risk, noting that he had huge support networks that could help him should he again choose to go to the ground. God. I hope he would. If he was granted that, I hope he would find a way to get underground, get to maybe Mexico, who is offering him political asylum, or, hopefully other countries too. Because, Jesus Christ, it's obviously clear he's never going to receive a fair trial in the UK, which is just, a puppet for the US empire and willing to do their bidding every step of the way. Court's decision was immediately panned by by journalists and press freedom orgs who had hoped to see Assange released today after 7 years in prison and hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. To us, that is nothing more than a pretext to keep him... Yes, clearly. This seems unnecessarily punitive and adding insult to injury after 10 years of hell that he has endured. We are deeply disappointed with today's decision, said Rebecca Vincent, Reporters Without Borders Director of International Campaigns, outside the courtroom. Vincent had been denied entry to the courtroom today, as had some other Assange's relatives. She had also faced questioning and harassment from police who used their power under the UK's lockdown law to break up pro-Assange demonstrations and arresting 92-year-old man. Jesus Christ. It's a great use of police resources there. United Kingdom, well fucking done. Jesus Christ. Assange's lawyer, Edward Fitzgerald QC, expressed his disappointment at the news that his client would be heading back to Belmarsh Prison in South London. The logical outcome of the ruling would be he regains liberty, at least conditionally. You would think, right? I mean, for God's sakes. That he could be targeted by the U.S. anywhere else in the world, he's less likely to skip bail. Yeah, I mean, disgusting all around. Oh, look at that. Here's Kevin Gostola. I was just referencing at the start of this video. The judge's decision against bailing Assange only fuels the theory that this prosecution is about keeping a publisher who the U.S. government despises tied up in limbo so he cannot effectively challenge them ever again. That's also a very good point he made on that live stream of how they want to keep Assange locked up at all costs for as long as possible, because when he was out, when he's able to, work with his colleagues at WikiLeaks, they were able to really strike a blow at the U.S. empire and all these other, corrupt governments all over the world. When he's locked up in Belmarsh prison, that's obviously literally putting a shackle on that type of work. That type of work exposing the crimes of the U.S. empire and other countries all around the world. This is absolutely outrageous for the judge to deny Assange bail, to claim that Belmarsh is doing a fine job of handling COVID even while London is unlocked. Yeah, it's like, prison's obviously the last place you want to be no matter what, but especially during a pandemic, locked up, close quarters with other people. I mean, for God's sakes. There are no pending charges against Julian Assange in the UK. The UK judge denied the US's request to extradite him, the only place where charges are pending. Despite this, the judge just ruled he must remain in prison in a COVID-ridden, high-security prison while the US appeals. I think that Gostola point about wanting to keep him locked up so he's not able to do that really important work that he was engaged in while at WikiLeaks. They wanted to keep him on the shelves, largely, I think, because of that, frankly. And just to send another message, like, this is how... If you go against the U.S. empire, if you expose their crimes, this is how we're going to treat you. This shows how authoritarian the British judiciary is. The only thing that U.S. cares about is keeping Assange in a cage, silenced, and disappeared. This gives them the best of all worlds. He stays in prison with no need to prove he's guilty of anything. That's despotic, yes. UK's, the Belmarsh, where he's at, considered UK's most notorious jail, taking in prisoners from around the country and other prisons can't handle. Overrun with 120 violent gangs, more than 161 recorded inmate assaults on staff. After COVID-19 outbreak this year, inmates have largely been locked down in their cells, typically for 23 hours a day. Which, again, any type of solitary confinement is a form of torture. Jesus Christ, I mean, just disgusting how, but not, frankly, again, not surprising, unfortunately, how the U.S. Empire, the U.S. security state has just did everything they could to make Julian Assange's life a living hell, and this continues with the UK government, the UK judiciary doing the bidding of the dirty work of the U.S. empire. It's disgusting. Free Assange, pardon Julian Assange. What him and WikiLeaks has done for the world has been an immense service that we should all be very grateful and thankful for exposing the crimes of the U.S. empire and other countries. Subscribe for more content. Peace. Much love.